Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to today's session, Getting the Most Out of InsCipher Connect. My name is Elizabeth Radka, and I am the Director of Customer Success here at InsCipher. I've been with the company for about a year and a half, but I have over 10 years of experience in the insurtech industry. I come from the world of implementation, so helping folks like you to adopt and maximize the value that they get out of the software that they purchase. I'm sure that some of you on this call can relate that having a background in insurance or insurance software or even tax filing does not fully prepare you for the whirlwind that is excess and surplus lines tax compliance. It is truly a world of its own. The good news is that we have tools that can help. So almost everyone on this call is likely already taking advantage of some of InsCipher Connect's features. But today, my goal is to give you a high-level overview of several of the newer features that you may or may not be aware of or fully utilizing. Time is a factor, and we only have 30 minutes here today. So rather than dive too deeply into one specific component of the tool, I'm going to be giving you that high-level overview of what we have to offer, but then pointing you towards the resources that we have so you can learn more. Our agenda for today is the introduction that I just gave you. We're going to discuss batch filing or e-filing as we refer to it. We'll talk a little bit more about password manager, report automations. I will give you a sneak peek of what's coming next from InsCipher Connect. And then we'll discuss the importance of feature requests and keeping the lines of communication open between us and our clients. A few housekeeping items before we dive in to talk about batch filing. I have everybody on mute. I also have the notifications muted for people when they're coming and going so we don't get sidetracked or preoccupied by those. And we do have a live chat going as well. So if you have a question as I move through this presentation, please add your question into the live chat. My colleague Jason Russin will be answering those questions in real time. We will be sending out a copy of this PowerPoint following this presentation today. We'll also send you a link to this recording. So there's no need for you to vigorously take notes or to try to grab screenshots of what we're covering here today. All of that will be provided to you after the fact. So let's kick things off by discussing batch filing or e-filing. E-filing is a term that is probably familiar to you, but we use this term to refer to any type of electronic filing that we do with the state. That's from our portal to the state. Now that can include API submissions or manual batch uploads. So when we say manual filing, we're talking about entering a policy or endorsement into the state taxpayer portal one at a time. When we're talking about manual batch filing, we're talking about uploading a spreadsheet that lists out all of your policies and endorsements and batch filing those all at once. And then we also have API batch filing, whereby you have the ability to take a batch of transactions from the InsCipher portal and without leaving the portal, push that right over to the state website. We've got some metrics here that I want to draw your attention to. The average filing time is cut by about 75% using batch filing. So manual filing 20 policies in the state of Illinois will take you an average of 45 to 60 minutes if you do them one at a time. If you batch file, it's going to take you about 5 to 10 minutes. So an enormous time saving. You're probably thinking to yourself, e-filing, batch filing, that sounds great, but how do I set it up? Do I need to get my IT department involved? Is there some type of coding that is required? The answer is that no, you don't need to get your IT department involved. This is simple and it is a no-code solution. We have all the instructions for setting up e-filing broken down into standalone help articles in our knowledge base. So we have one help article for each state because the steps are a little bit different. As I mentioned, you don't need to get IT involved. This is a no-code solution. This can be set up by your filing agent admin user. So whoever the user is at your organization that is, the keeper of the 7 keys, so to speak, they have the highest level of administrative access in the InsCipher portal. They can set this up. Or if you are a filing agent, That filing agent admin can grant you access to our password manager. It's just really the click of a button here. And then you would have access to be able to set up that e-filing as well. Each state setup is a little bit different, but most follow the same general recipe. You are going to enter your state website credentials into the InsCipher password manager. So essentially, we're going to tell InsCipher how it can access your state taxpayer website account. And then in some cases, you will be required to submit a test batch of policies and endorsements, basically to prove to the state that you know what you're doing, you can follow instructions, the batches that you import are going to be accurate, you're not going to accidentally create a big mess that then has to be fixed. Those test batches are only required by a handful of states, including Texas, including Florida, but most states like Arizona and Alabama, there's just a minimal amount of setup that required. It's super, super easy to do. So as I mentioned, in some cases, you'll be able to click a button from within the InsCipher portal and instantly send that batch of filings directly to the state without having to leave the InsCipher portal. It's easy, it's one click. And then for other states, you will need to export the batch of filings from InsCipher onto a spreadsheet, which is only a few clicks, and then go to the state portal and upload it. If you're not familiar with how to do that, that's okay, because our step-by-step instructions don't only detail how to create that export batch from the InsCipher portal, but they also provide screenshots and tell you where to go on each state taxpayer website in order to upload that batch. Now, once you've completed those basic e-file setup steps for each state, actually using the tools are really as easy as 1, 2, 3. Step 1, you're going to create a batch, or again, a CSV spreadsheet listing of all the transactions that you need to file in that state. Step 2 will be to review and submit that batch. And then step 3 is going to be to verify the submission status and make sure that everything went through properly and cleanly. So on that note, InsCipher will pre-validate your batches. So again, there are some fail-safes built into our system to make sure that what you are pushing over to the state websites is accurate. It will identify any errors that it senses prior to allowing you to actually submit it. So some common errors that you might see. If your batch is too big, our system will let you know. So most states only allow for X number of transactions to be imported in a batch. If you try to import 10,000 of them all at once, you're going to get an error from our system before you actually try to push that into the state portal. Maybe you've forgotten to attach some of the state required documentation. If our system notices that, it's not going to allow you to generate that batch. Or if you've listed any incorrect license info, our system's going to pick up on that too. So InsCipher Connect has some built-in fail-safes to make sure that you don't do something that you instantly regret the minute you push that batch over to the state portal. And on that note, just a reminder, a couple of reminders in terms of best practices. The system's not going to allow you to batch file flagged filings. So it will allow you to batch file things that are in submitted status or things that are in ready to file status. You're not going to be able to batch file anything in flagged status. So you want to make sure that you're clearing up any of your flags before you try to file them in a batch. If you cancel or delete a batch from within the InsCipher portal, all of those filings that were on your batch list will revert back to submitted status. It will not cancel or delete filings from the state website. So for your own internal InsCipher portal purposes, it will revert those transactions back to submitted so that you can refile them. But if you've actually pushed something over to the state website, then you're going to have to back those out through the state portal. Once they've been filed, they've been filed. If they were filed incorrectly, which again is something we try to prevent, you would need to back those out of the state portal and fix them accordingly. So we are always working to improve efficiency for our clients. And this is what we have coming down the pike. In about 2 weeks, roughly, we're going to see some changes with the state of Illinois. We will be switching from the manual submission of batches to API submission. So once again, click of a button from InsCipher, you can push your batch directly over to the state of Illinois website. you will also see the counter signature field begin to automatically populate. So one of the caveats of filing in Illinois is that you need to keep that counter signature number on file. That's basically a receipt that they actually received the filing that you submitted. Right now we have a field in InsCipher where you can add that information, but we're building in some logic and some functionality where that counter signature number will actually auto-populate once you push that batch over to the state of Illinois. This is not something you may or may not notice this if you're just filing and you're using this tool from the front end, but in the state of California, we're going to augment the batch submissions from an XML file to a JSON file. And we will be updating the SL2 to use the declining carrier information. So good stuff happening there. And then this is my personal favorite because I know a lot of you have been asking for this. State of New York filing. First of all, we will be switching from manual filing to API, which is huge. But the second thing that you'll see happening is we have the ability to pull that stamped deck page back from ELANI. So the workflow right now, as you're probably aware, if you're filing in New York, is a little bit clunky. Yes, you can file from the InsCipher portal, but you are required to pull the deck page with the state stamp wording from ELANI. This will allow you to bypass that step of having to go into ELANI and do it. You'll be able to pull it right from InsCipher Connect. I know a lot of people are going to be excited about that one. By the way, according to our internal filing services team, and you may or may not know this as Connect users, but we also have an internal department of filers. So they are actually kind of our Connect clients. They use Connect in the same way that you do. And they have said that batch filing, e-filing is probably the single biggest time saver for high volume filers. So with that, I'd like to pivot and start to talk a little bit about Password Manager. So how did we get here? How did we get to the place that we decided to build Password Manager? There's a couple of key challenges that are the foundation of our thinking and our intention behind the creation of Password Manager. Number one, cybersecurity is always a concern. Long gone are the days of using password 123 for all of your passwords and all of your websites. That is no longer an option and hasn't been for quite some time. Passwords need to be long and complex and tough for hackers to potentially figure out. But complex passwords are tough to keep track of, right? Because it's not going to be the same thing every time with a little extra caret or an extra number behind it. They need to be more complex than that. Additionally, if your organization is growing, if you are going through a period of growth or you expect to go through a period of growth, you're going to see more producers joining the organization, or you're going to be reporting for more producers. More licenses mean more passwords, more state login credentials that you need to keep on hand. And if your team of filers is growing, then you are going to have more people who need access to these passwords. So it's more hands in the pot, more people who need access to a pool of passwords, and you just need a better way of tracking them securely. So that's how we decided to create Password Manager. This is a secure and encrypted way to house all of your state login credentials in one place, and it provides your team a more seamless end-to-end filing experience. You don't have to leave InsCipher to retrieve passwords. You don't have to go to a spreadsheet where all your passwords are saved. You don't have to go to LastPass. You don't have to go anywhere else where you maintain a shared group of passwords for the filing services team. And you also don't have to leave InsCipher to search for state taxpayer website URLs. So again, if you have the URLs for those 50 states where you file, maybe you have those bookmarked in your web browser, maybe you have them listed on a spreadsheet, but you don't need that anymore. You can literally get to the state websites directly from our portal. And my favorite feature about the Password Manager is that there is a change history log. So you can see who changed what, when they changed it, and the old values plus the new values. So nothing is ever lost. The other nice thing about Password Manager is that it is easy to add and to update your passwords. So there's two ways that you can move your password information or the password information for all the licensees for whom you file into the Password Manager. You can easily click a button and add one at a time, or you can do a mass import using a CSV template. So if you do a mass import, it obviously will take a little bit of elbow grease up front. You'll want to use our template. You'll want to add your passwords. You'll want to make sure that it's formatted correctly so our system understands exactly whose password belongs with what license. But it will make your life infinitely easier once you get those passwords into the portal. So whether you want to do that one at a time or whether you want to tackle this as a project and aim to get everything in at once, really depends on a couple factors. I obviously would not recommend that you kick this project off in the middle of annual season, for example. In fact, this is something that you want to handle when you have a little bit of downtime because it's going to set you up for success during those busier periods. So you certainly can add some one-off one-off logins as you go, one-off passwords as you go, or you can actually sit down and say, today's the day that I'm going to load all of my passwords into Password Manager. You can tackle this one of those two ways. Any time that you spend doing this now is just, it's going to pay off in spades later down the line. It really is. It's going to make your life so much easier when you are up against filing deadlines. So again, take some time to explore this tool if you haven't already. If you've already set up e-filing in certain states, you've probably already interacted with Password Manager. That's one of the things that you need to add in there is your passwords in order to be able to batch file. So you might have had some exposure to this, but if you don't have all your passwords in there, take a look at this because I think you might be missing on something big. The other neat thing about Password Manager is that it is set up so that it can accommodate different types of passwords. So if you did set up your batch filing already in some states or all states, then you might be saying, well, wait a minute, the login credentials that I use in order to batch file are different than the credentials that I used for Sally, the producer, when I go in and file on her behalf. Our system is set up to accommodate that. So Password Manager offers different types of like tags for certain types of passwords. So the first one would be manual filing. If you add a manual filing password for a license and you are ready to file a submitted transaction for that licensee, then what you would see is the URL for the filing website, the state taxpayer filing website. You would see the username and the password for that licensee down here in this section. Right? So what that means is when you're ready to file this individual transaction, you click a button and it takes you to the state website. You click another button and it copies your username, another button and it copies your password. You paste that into the login screen and boom, there you are exactly where you need to be to file this transaction. So that's what I mean when we're talking about the end-to-end filing experience. This isn't just a place where you can keep your passwords. Those passwords and the state URLs are going to appear in exactly the place that you need them to. Another password type that you'll see is that e-filing type, right? So it doesn't make sense that you would see an e-filing password on an individual transaction, but when you're here on the screen to review and submit a batch export, that's where, and you're going to have to use your imagination here. I apologize that this is a little bit blurry. Just trust me. Trust me when I say we're on the review and submit batch export screen. But again, it's going to allow you to jump right to the page on the state website where you need to upload, bulk upload that batch. It's going to give you the specific username and password to batch file as well. We're also very aware that the site that you file on is not always the same site where you need to go to make a payment. Case in point, California, you need to go to the PayCal site to actually make a payment. That's not the same place that you go to file. So if you add a password, user login, and credentials for a payment website, you would see that information populate in the actual SRT, in the state reporting task that the system generates for you. That's when it would call out those login credentials specific to the payment website. So again, I can't say this enough. If you have not played around with that tool, if you've ever been frustrated by trying to track down passwords or trying to share them in a secure way across your team, check out Password Manager. We're just past annuals for the most part now, so things are calming down a little bit in the surplus lines tax filing world. We obviously have semi-annual reports coming up, but this is worth your time to set this up. It's really going to work to your advantage later down the line. So another thing that's really going to help you out and save some time are the report automations for Excel and PDF reports. Our mantra, work smarter, not harder. That especially holds true when you are a tax filer. Sometimes it's difficult to see past those mounds and mounds of filings, and you're living from one deadline to the next. And that's where our report automations come in. It is as easy as pushing a button. I know I've said that a few times, but really it is that easy. This feature has come from feedback from our clients who have said, hey, I'm keying certain pieces of information into InsCipher. Why can't we use that information to populate the reports that I need to provide to the state? We heard you, we see you, and we've been working for about the last year now to automatically generate what reports we can from the InsCipher portal. So think of it as merge fields, but it's through InsCipher and it's using license information and agency information to pre-populate forms so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So we have been racing against the clock to release the report automations in states based on state due dates. So as I mentioned, we started this last year, and we have been releasing the report automations on not just a state by state basis, but a report by report basis based on upcoming due dates. So we've made great progress. We still have some more to go. But this is what we have completed so far. Just a quick note on what you see here. Just because you don't see an X in a certain column doesn't mean we haven't yet completed that report. These are kind of all of the possible reports that we see across various states. Not every state requires every report. So in certain states, they might only require an annual report. In certain other states, they might only require quarterly reports and an annual. So just because you see a lot of white space here doesn't mean that we have yet to create these reports. Not all of these are requirements. I just wanted to make that clear because this can be a little bit misleading without that caveat. We are still working on this again. So our goal is to get these report automations released on a state by state and report by report basis in advance of the state due dates. So keep an eye out for newly released states, and you'll see those come through in our InsCipher Connect release notes, the emails that you get from us occasionally that tell you what we're working on and what you can look out for. Now, in order to utilize this feature, there's not a heck of a lot of setup that you need to do, but there are some things that you should check. There is data that will populate on those reports that are pulled from 3 places within your settings. Agency admin user settings, which is basically the details about an agency. License settings, again, details about each licensee, and then your filing agent user settings. So from your agency admin user settings, there are some fields that you'll want to make sure are populated. Pretty basic, your FEIN number, your address and contact information for the agency. Now you'll notice that some of these fields are marked as required and others are not. There's a good chance that when you set up your agencies, you only included the required information and you skipped over the other information because it wasn't required. That's fine, that's pretty common. But if you want to take advantage of the report automations, you'll want to make sure that this information is fully populated. Now, if it's not fully populated, you can still generate a PDF. It's just going to be missing information, or an Excel report is going to be missing information. So in terms of best practice, if you want to get the full functionality out of the report automations, make sure that this information is populated. The same basic principle applies to the license settings. There are some fields here that were required at the time of your license import and others that were not. You may have a lot of these fields blank, but if you want to take advantage of the report automations to their full capacity, please make sure that you're filling in this information for each one of the licenses in the portal. Something specifically that I would like to call out is down at the bottom, and that is the producer's digital signature. So for the states that allow digital signatures, if you upload a PNG version, transparent background preferred, of the producer's signature to their license account here, their license record here, that will automatically populate on any report where digital signature is accepted by the state. So a very cool feature, and one less thing for you to do by having to download a report and then manually stamp that digital signature on it. And then lastly, your filing agent settings. Everything that you need for report automation should be here because these were required fields at the time that your filing agent was set up. But just in case, you want to double check and make sure. Okay, so again, I hate to use this term, but it's as easy as the click of a button. So when you are ready to create a report from the state reporting task, you've got two options. Number one, you can click download the template, which is basically just going to download the blank report for you, which you can manually update. Or you can click pre-filled report and it's going to download that PDF or in some cases an Excel document for you. And then once downloaded, you can manually correct any issues that you see. Hopefully there won't be any, but you can manually correct it. You can add a signature or notarization, and then you can print and proceed as normal. And I just want to pause for a minute and say again, this is all coming from feedback that we've received from clients like you. So when you're working in our portal, in whatever capacity you're working in there, if you have questions for us, you can always reach out. And if you have feedback for us, you can always provide that as well. And I'm going to harp on that a little bit more in the next 10 minutes or so. But it's very important that everyone on this call understands that what we're creating here, we're creating for you. So again, keep those lines of communication with us open. Okay, so what's next? So what we have cooking right now and what is due for release in the upcoming months is a new look and feel of InsCipher Connect. So again, some of the feedback that we've received from our valued clients is that, hey, when I am working on a bunch of filings and I'm staring at the screen, there's a lot of columns on my file view. I'm trying to see a lot of different things at once. I have to scroll from one side to the other. So what we're going to do is move that left side navigation menu that you see in the current view of the portal to the top. So same functionality of InsCipher, nothing big is changing like that. You'll just have a different way of finding what you're looking for. It's going to be very self-explanatory. I don't expect this to throw anybody off kilter too much, but it's going to open up the width of the screen so it's more easy for you to view the filings and the transactions that you're working on. It's going to look a little bit cleaner. It looks a little bit more updated. More to come there. We will be sending out release notes. You'll have the option to opt into this before we roll it out for everybody. So just be on the lookout for that and more information to come. And just one more time for the people in back, everything that you've seen here today was all based off of feature requests, conversations that we've had with clients, use cases, and need for efficiency, need for accuracy. We will be sending out this PowerPoint, as I've mentioned several times. This is a live link to our feature request form. If you have questions about a certain feature, you can contact support@inscipher.com. If you have a suggestion for an enhancement request, please let us know. We're happy to keep those lines of communication open with you and to learn more about how we can improve this product and really gear it towards your specific needs. You can read about these releases in the release note emails that we send out on a regular basis. You can also read more in our quarterly newsletters, which we're just launching. And if you would like to get on our newsletter distribution list, you can email support@inscipher.com. You can also always reach out to our customer success manager, Kristen Pfeiffer. Her contact information is here.